Me or what was coming to me.
Or what's coming to you, Tony?
The world, Chico. And everything in it.
What if you were told that we've always had a sequel to this blockbuster, but it never had a film adaptation? What if Tony Montana survived from the events of his mansion being raided by Sosa's men? What if he had the opportunity to get back at those that turned on him for a much bigger profit? Now, if only he hadn't lost it all at the end of the film, he could have easily turned around and actually shot the guy that killed him in the first place. Well, actually, you can do that. Scarface, The World Is Yours. The video game. You probably didn't know where this was going, huh? Now let's not jump into the conclusions and thinking this is an actual sequel. It's a what-if scenario more than anything, really. But it brings up the interesting question that everyone might have asked at one point after watching the film. What would have happened if Tony Montana survived? Well, as soon as you start up the game, you get more of a glimpse on that outcome after finding out that the ending of the film is the beginning of the game. This front cover will deceive you into thinking you're about to replay the entire movie in a video game, and who's gonna blame you for being fooled? Still, it's a good thing if you think about it. Rather than retelling the story we already know the ending to, why not go through a new story with a fresh idea that actually might entice the players to be a little more approachable without holding grudges by connecting the story with the movie? With that in mind, as a fan, the decision is left up to you. Whether you want to make this story canon, but the creators behind this game doesn't force you to embrace the idea of that being the case. Everything from here on out is hypothetical, despite the story being basic all the way through. There's a ton of references from the movie that really make this game feel like it's done justice. Whether you experienced the GTA games or at one point have tried out the Mafia games, or maybe even step into the world of Saints Row, Scarface is right up your alley. It may be similar to GTA as a game, this is especially true if you bring up Vice City, but as a whole, Scarface takes a different approach when it comes to their goals. So while everybody is excited waiting for GTA 6 to come out, perhaps watching this video might subside your hype a little bit. So, let me take you back to the Scarface's time in the 80s when crime movies were at its peak. This is Miami. Welcome to Little Havana. In the world of Scarface, you play as the one and only Tony Montana. And they thought he was dead, but turns out he doesn't die so easily. Sosa took everything, leaving him with nothing. And it won't be his first time since he's already dealt with being poor in both Cuba and in Miami. And with a higher motivation than ever to get to the top because of vengeance, it's time to reclaim the turf and rebuild the empire. All he's got are his balls and his word. And he's not breaking them for nobody. If you're familiar with an old film named American History X, the writer of that story, David McKenna, also wrote the story to this sequel. But Oliver Stone, the man who screenwrote the film, was asked to write the story for the sequel, but he declined. Seeing as McKenna was a huge fan and had a familiar territory when it came to gang movies, he was the next person asked to write the story, and he accepted. McKenna wasn't familiar with any video game work at the time, so this would be his first time. He worked on this for several months, while Radical Entertainment took a little more than 3 years to develop this game. We don't normally dive deep into the history or behind the scenes on how the game was developed. Most viewers don't really care about that sort of thing, though some minor details are important to throw in there. But let's be real, you want to know what this game is about. So Scarface the film was released in early December 1983. 23 years later, on October 10th, 2006, we get the video game. Published by Sierra and developed by Radical Entertainment. The box art itself is identical compared to the DVD film, at least the front cover and the spines. Although this one has a shining cover, whereas this one is just an ordinary display. What's the manual like? Well, as much as you expect, black and white. There's about 13 pages of instructions that don't elaborate much on gameplay information other than the basic details front to back, and even character descriptions aren't that much to look over either. At least now you know what Gaspar Gomez looks like. The original Xbox version of Scarface can render from 480i and 480p to 720p. So in other words, you can either play at a standard display or high def. You're going to see footage between 4x3 480p and 60x9 720p. even though the Xbox version advertises that it can run in HD, there are some cases where areas slow the game down tremendously, but when playing it under 480p, admittedly there are better results shown in performance. The game immediately starts off with the ending scene in the movie where Tony blasts his door off and shoots at everybody in the mansion. The mission begins when Sosa's enforcers start sneaking up behind Tony, giving you the opportunity to give this guy a taste of his own ending. Tony continues his rage by shooting his way out to escape the premise and going to hiding, while Sosa's men steal everything they can before the police start crashing in to take over the mansion, causing Tony to go absolutely bankrupt. He goes into hiding for a while and talks down on himself for not listening to anyone when heeding advice. Even though he lost everything, he still got the fire in him, and it's enough for someone like Tony to put that fire into good use. Vengeance can drive anyone to fight. 3 months later, the time for thinking has passed, and we're here to take action. Operation The Road to Sosa. It's a long road to get to him, and there's a lot of ground to cover, so we'll just start with the controls. You move around with the analog and use the D-pad to select weapons or putting them away. Triggers are lock on and fire as usual, and you hit X to reload. Interactions switch up between the B and the Y buttons for some reason, but at least entering the car is all the same. Tony can auto-lock on enemies, but you can move the cursor outside the hitbox to focus on other enemies. If you just hold the R trigger and just repeatedly tap the L trigger, that's an easier way of getting by the mob. Tony has a balls meter. Anytime you are on the ground, you can call stuff out or interact with people by pressing the B button. While taking out the gang members with your weapons, you can taunt your enemies and increase your balls meter. There's plenty of other ways to increase that meter, like clearing missions, selling yayo. Hell, this goes as far as driving a car like a maniac with near hit misses, power slides, or even airtime bonuses. Once you fill it up, you would use this in a tight situation like a whole gang coming at you, or if you're low on health. Tony goes into rage and overpowers everybody in his way as he shoots them down with whatever weapon you carry. It's satisfying to go into rage mode because you can still loot their items as you pass by, gaining health. But while in rage mode, he has no acceleration in turning the camera vertically other than himself moving. Something tells me this was done on purpose because of how stubborn Tony could be by only looking straight and not around. That's kinda clever. Tony's catalog and all the other basic public cars suck when it comes to driving. But once you get yourself a fast car, or any other expensive car for that matter, driving becomes an enjoyable ride. That's not even a joke. Everything just works. You can go as fast as you can, avoiding obstacles and other cars, power sliding in sharp turns while maintaining the speed up on ramps for epic airtime camera angles. That's not to say you're invincible in any way. You're going to get into some crashes one way or another. Hell, sometimes it's not even your fault. But when you nail it down and keep that momentum going, it's almost like Ricky Bobby's reaction when he picked up his speed above 116.
116.
116! I'm going fast again! Woo! Woo!
My only problem with driving is that you have to use the phase buttons. Triggers are strictly used for shooting, and there's no other way of changing the controls within the settings menu. It still works, it's not like it's unbearable, but even GTA had it all figured out for the Xbox versions. Controls on there are better, but driving in this game is a hell lot better. Even though you have the freedom to move around and drive to wherever, or how you might even be that person who starts some trouble with the gangs or even with the police at the start. Yeah, sure, you could do that, but generally you're gonna get bored of that. Tony doesn't steal cars. You can walk up to almost any car and tell them to get out.
My wife's having our baby. Give me your car.
Don't let this whore interrupt your business, okay?
Scarface heavily inclines you to continue the story and do missions. Mind you, there's reasons behind this, and as we go along with the explanation, you'll understand soon enough. You meet up with an old associate named Felix. He will give you a head start on taking his leads, doing jobs that help his contacts, which could range between protecting them from incoming gangs, delivery drops in a different vehicle, beating somebody up just because, or some other missions that seem arbitrary. Regardless of what mission you do, money is part of the main objective to get. If not that, then everyone else you took down always has something for you to loot, like cash, drugs, and ammo. You can also pick up their guns to help you get by when you don't have a weapons vendor, and we'll bring that up again shortly. Most of the time you'll be selecting through this menu on the left. There's a lot to bring up, but we'll start with the Empire. This is how you select your missions, such as progressing through the main missions or side missions under Felix's leads. This is also how you look over your turfs, properties that you buy off while going through the story. And with a heat bar, this tells you how much trouble you are in with either group or both. Now let's go back for a second, because earlier you heard me mention that money is part of the objective. Now, the best way to explain this is that there's 4 different main objectives to look into, and money is just one. The second is the product, meaning the yayo. Tony just got back into the dealer game, and so we have to start off with small grams. By doing a couple leads for Felix, a local dealer will show up to sell you a good amount of grams, and after a successful deal, you can either repeat this process to get more grams, or you sell it off to the streets right away. Your map on the corner left will show the white dots on the screen, meaning they want to buy from you. There's also an alternative way to earn money without killing or selling on the streets. If you still got a good amount of grams, you can take them over to any storefront with a high percentage of your money back. My suggestion to anyone that tries this is to go to the Babylon Club. Always take your grams to the club. They will give you the highest percentage out of all of your storefronts. You'll do this for a little while during your mission progressions in the Little Havana and downtown, because by then you'll already have storefronts and 2 storages afterwards, which brings us to our third main objective, expanding the empire. We do this by visiting a select storefronts and give the owner a proposition they can't refuse to sell the place to Tony. What's funny about this is that so long as Tony does each of them a favor they ask, almost everybody is cool with Tony's offer, and some of them are even happier than before to work under him. The only person that gives him a problem is in Chipeso Trattoria, located in South Beach. He in his own way flicks you off and wants nothing to do with his business up until Gasper's grunt gang shows up to wreck the place, leaving you no choice but to clean his mess. And after his mess is clean, Tony leaves him with an ultimatum.
If you don't sell me this place right now, I'm gonna kill you myself. How'd you like that?
All right. You proved yourself.
Much like Felix's leads, depending on the person, it's almost the same thing. Other favors have primary targets to either kill or to protect, but either way, with those storefronts purchased, you can then take over one of the gang's storage houses by taking them out for yourself. Once Tony takes over a storage house, you'll be able to buy bigger grams to store. This is where your ways of distributing your products will shift. Rather than individually sell on the streets, your storefronts will do that for you. And while on this mission, you drive around to every storefront you purchase to collect your large percentage income. Then you take it to the bank and collect your dirty cash. And that dirty cash then gets deposited to the bank, which is something you need to do. And we'll come back to that. Every mission completed will earn you reputation points, similar to GTA's respect points, but these points are to level up your stats. Each letter from the Scarface word is your progression level. The more letters you have, the more exotics to unlock, guns to acquire, more keys to distribute, and even more turfs to open up. With enough money and reputation, you can access the exotics menu, a list of catalogs to purchase off of, and you can buy cars, boats, and a henchman driver along with it. You can call up your driver to deliver your car at almost any time, and when you do take the wheel, their driver will come along and back you up. Now, as he calls up his henchman, whether he's asking for a boat or for a car, he has a different dialogue every time he gets on the phone.
Can't hear you, man. Fuck! This is important business, man. You need to be a professional, okay? How many times I gotta tell you? Bring me my fucking car right now.
Nothing I can do to you, nature.
He even calls to check in to see if his ex-wife is called.
Did Elvie call? She call me? No? Okay, look. If she call, you tell her this phone call is over, man.
The best part about these fast cars is that instead of inputting a button combination to whip out the cheat codes in the hub world, whatever car you buy, you get to keep no matter what condition. But of course, with all expensive cars, it comes at a cost. If you total your car, then you'll have to pay for those repairs in order to get it back. Depending how expensive the car was, will determine the cost of repairs. Now, the cheaper way of going about this is instead of trying to wreck your car till it's totaled, bring it over to the gas station's car wash and at a cheap cost of repairing everything for only $1,000. You can also buy a weapons guy. In the beginning, there's a weapons vendor scattered across towns. But once you get a weapons guy, you won't need to travel to vendors anymore and instead access the menu to call them up to buy weapons, ammo, all the good stuff you need to take down your enemies. But unfortunately, it does come at a price, but that's the only way this guy is going to make his money, and it's not like it matters because you're going to be a rich man later as you progress through the game. Keep in mind though, that after buying a weapon, it goes straight into your weapons locker and not on you. But after having your car sent your way, you can access the locker by going into the trunk of your car. You can only carry 3 weapons at a time, and a good amount of ammo on pocket. Certain weapons can be upgraded like the SMG, the Desert Eagle, and of course the rifles. There's other kinds of henchmen to hire. With these guys such as an enforcer or an assassin, they can take care of small jobs for some good pay. Although it is an option and it is appreciated, it's just easier to stick with Tony to get the money. Now getting back to the reputation points, there are moments where if you get caught up on all your main missions with nothing else going on, the last thing you would need to do is purchase all the rest of the exotics that you can afford. This includes improving the mansion to make it more eclectic, furniture and decorations to cover up the empty spaces, which, by the way, you can do that on your own, pimp your mansion, that kind of thing. With 3 main objectives covered, now we can bring up the last objective, and that's dealing with the gang heat. Nacho's gang, Diaz gang, and Gasper's gang have taken over all of your turfs, which means you're out to fight back for it. You have 2 meters that show up above the map, a gang heap and cop heap. It's as simple as it sounds. You piss them off and they're most likely going to go after you like a bounty on your head. These gangs are always going to come after you because you're working your way to get your turf back while you're doing Felix's leads or favors for the owners. These gangs have their own skull legend on the map that mark their territories. They have a numerous amount of gangs to take down all over Miami. Even if you cleared the map, you gotta go by the numbers that they have in order to fully eliminate them. They always come back in certain locations like it's a randomizer. The reward for eliminating them is worth it. It's an easier way of getting cash and sometimes drugs, but depending on how hidden the area is, it could be a very hard scenario to get out of, especially if the cops knows what's going on, which happens 70% of the time. Let me take you back to this map. After purchasing a storefront, you can upgrade that store with a surveillance camera, not really used within the game, and henchman bodyguards. While collecting your income from your storefronts, your gang heat is going to pick up intentionally. In the middle of your income collecting, your rival gang is going to plan an attack. This could happen one and or 2 ways. On your travels, if they spot you, they're coming after you, leaving you with a choice on either running or taking them down. The second is your rival gang taking down a front. If you don't have that many storefronts, it's not a big deal to take those guys out and resume collecting your income. But if you have 3 or even all of your turfs covered and your rival gang happens to be taking out a front from the other side, word of advice, leave them be. This sounds crazy, but because that gang meter constantly rises while collecting your money, them taking down one front serves as a distraction, giving you all the time in the world to grab the rest of your money everywhere else. And with all the upgrades you bought for that store, you have even more time. Gonna be honest though, those bodyguards serve no purpose other than giving you time because they can't shoot anybody down for shiza. It may be an unfortunate thing to lose a front, but if you stop what you're doing to take those guys out, most likely they're gonna take out another front. And with the damages that happen over time, it could be a lot or all of your money lost within that front. So rather than have all of your fronts destroyed, you let them just focus on one. In case it's too hard for you to see, there's a gauge bar surrounding the map on the corner of your screen. Rather than having an individual stars, cops are going to be suspicious on your activities when that bar gets bigger, or if it fills all the way up. The scenario becomes worse if your heat is high as well, because by then you'll have to start dealing with them all together. With that in mind, the same gauge bar is going to switch up on you after its first fill. Obviously, the status quo is only going to get worse as the bar fills up again. This might be the idea GTA 4 picked up on when escaping the cops, where it shows a ring radius to escape out of. Though there are instances where you'll still go through a police chase even outside the ring, but dear lord, if you got all that dirty cash and drugs and trying to escape this hell, you better pull it off before that gauge meter fills up again, because if it does,
You're fucked.
literally you can't escape from this. It's all downhill from here.
Pull over! I'll pull over for you! How about this?
Cops don't normally roam around the cities unless they have something to be worried about, like you, for example. If that heat meter is high, they're more suspicious about your activities rather than what's going on with the other gangs you might be dealing with. And if you get caught, you only have a small chance to fast talk your way out with the cops. Otherwise, all of your money and drugs are gone for good. The same can be said if you die in this game, and it's one of the worst things that can happen to you. Do yourself a favor. Try to avoid that at all costs if you can. As much of a pain in the ass as it is just to go to the bank after every single mission, not only to launder your money with a low interest rate to them, bunch of assholes, but the only way to manually save your game, yeah, you're gonna have to. The bank is your only means of manually saving. Otherwise, there are certain missions you complete that give you the choice on saving after doing so. But my suggestion to you would be to save after every mission. Save after eliminating a gang member, save the game before and after you do anything. Everything you have on you will instantly disappear if you're not careful with your health. Perhaps the better time than never to bring this up. This little mini game pops up on almost everything that you do, whether it's buying or selling yayo, fast talk to cops, money laundering at the bank, or even getting yourself out of trouble. By holding the B button, the gauge meter will charge this bar until it's a complete full circle. You then release the button right before. This may sound as simple as it is, but depending on the task, you don't want to mess up with the dealers, otherwise it turns into an ambush. When money laundering, the bank always takes a percentage of interest in your deposit. Luckily, the meter is always slow, so it's nearly impossible to screw this up. If those cops start running up to you, don't bother with the fast talk. Run, dip, get out of there. Away from the cops. You want no confrontation with them at all whatsoever. And by the way, don't follow that advice in real life, okay? Don't do that for real. You legit can get in trouble for that. In case you haven't noticed after all this time, dude, this game is freaking huge. Like, it's bigger than Vice City. And we haven't even talked about the islands, which is a different map separate from Miami with 3 different islands to visit. You only come here when you need to during the story. And if not, you only come here to grab kilograms from a dealer and take a boat all the way back to Miami and store it into the storehouse. As far as riding a boat, it's no different than how you control a car, except riding on water. However, boat armor is not so good when taking damage from gun bullets. If you end up getting an attack boat or a cigarette gunship, it comes equipped with a machine gun. And this gun is so loud, Miami can hear that all the way from here. One of the toughest challenges besides the main story and distributing is bringing the product back to the city. It's not hard to find the nearest shortcut to get off the island because no matter where you leave the map, you'll always be transported to whichever part of the city you want to go to. It's keeping your boat safe is the problem. All the gangs are going after you, and all you have to do is escape from them. Then, when you get to the city, you gotta keep your distance from the coastal guards. Now this part is easy, just avoid them and keep out of sight. How about productions under the Montana name? You spend a fortunate amount of money on things like extra music library on your list, bringing the storefront purchases down by 10%, reducing the cop heat down by half, add an extra weapon on you with max ammo, or easy money on gambling. You can waste time on doing things like races, but the reward is kind of small, almost not worth it really, and the same can be said about gambling, unless you like to bet on fights. But if you don't want to see 2 people go at each other, well, there's always cockfighting. Whoa, don't get it twisted now. They're roosters. Although this was never on my bingo card, this kind of side activity is a radical entertainment thing. You gotta love them for that. Gambling in this game isn't really my thing, but we had to bring it up somehow because, well, somebody out there is probably gonna care about it. Alright, we gotta bring up the music. It's all classic music from the 70s, 80s, there's probably some 90s music in there too. It's a library list that you can look into on this menu. Genres from hip-hop, country, reggae, reggaetone, electro dance, and what better way to make this game feel like a Scarface game than to have its own original soundtrack from the movie. Man, such banging tracks. We can't play any examples unfortunately, that's a copyright thing. But if you're into the classics like music back before the early 2000s, dude, you are going to feel right at home here. You have the option to switch the music on or off with the back button. During missions, Scarface has its own music score in the game, so you can switch between licensed music or the score. One of my favorite moments in this game is after going through a successful deal. If the music is off and you go do this deal, the music turns right back on. Now imagine you made money off that deal and all of a sudden Let the Music Play by Shannon just starts playing right after. There's no better way to explain the feeling other than hell yeah. Let me bring up Tony's voice actor. Al Pacino would have been cool with voicing his own character again, but he admitted that he sounded different than his younger self after 20 years the film was released, and that's understandable. So the man himself picked Andre Sogliozzo to voice his character, and you can see why. He may have a slightly deeper voice than Al Pacino, but the dude pulled it off and then some. He really knew how to portray Tony in his mannerisms, his tone, and the way he talks.
This is my town, my world, George, and nobody's gonna take it away from me. ¿Y qué pasa, man? I heard you're trying to sell this place. How about I pay you in cash, you work for me, and we go straight to the top? How'd you like that? Hey, who'd you call in little, man? I kick your ass all over the dance floor, okay?
He really brings out the life, the personality of Scarface into this game. Besides the soundtrack, apparently this man does a lot of voice acting and animations, most notably Avatar. He voices the father of the Water Tribe and Boomy from Earth Tribe. Now that's pretty crazy. And while we're on the subject, Tony can have conversations with all the locals and pedestrians. You come to find that there's a lot of thought put into these dialogues, and it's only funnier with the games because they just throw shit at each other.
Straight up, dog, you know it.
Yeah, yo, pussy. Sorry, siento me, man.
What crazy motherfucker's gonna argue with that?
Oi, you don't smell good. Why don't you take a fucking bath, okay?
Alright, so what about the story? What's that like? Well, it won't be too broad this time, and you already got the idea on what happened in the beginning. While Tony was gone for 3 months, the gangs in Miami slowly took over all the other turfs Tony had. The Blood Brothers from the Diaz gang have taken over Little Havana, Nacho's gang with Downtown, and Gasper's gang on North and South Beach. Some of Tony's men have moved over to Gasper along with his yayo from the storehouses. Ever since they took over, drugs on the market have become tight and expensive, which is hurting the consumers and even the dealers. Tony meets up with an old associate, Felix, and these two work together to not only spread the word that he's alive, but also take over the drug business by selling in the streets. Doing it right, unlike Gasper, who only wants to sell to the rich. Vice is a secret agency that got Tony's mansion locked up. They also deal with his heat, so if he's in too much trouble, Tony can pay them money to clear out heat. Now let's steer back. Tony has to pay $10,000 to get it back. He makes a quick deal, pays Vice what he owes, and he gets his mansion back. Tony also pays a visit to Gasper's penthouse after finding out he took his stash, money laundering. He goes in and takes everybody out. He then steals the armored van that's got his stash, drops it off at the bank, and meet with Jerry. Yes, the same Jerry from the movie, although he's not voiced by Dennis Holohan, but instead Michael York. Now that he has the money, it's time to get the power. And by that, buying off front businesses to expand the empire. Tony will do his part in helping his soon-to-be employees by buying off their businesses and set aside their inside job in distributing keys. Keys as in the yayo. After taking over the storage houses from the local gangs, every front that you bought will blatantly drop off your income by their area and you make the drive to pick up all of your money to drop off at the bank. The Diaz brothers gets pissed at Tony to where they actually end up killing his mom, and that alone just unleashes his fury on them.
What kind of sick fuck eats a pancake for dinner?
Holy shit! You and your fucking brother are dead!
After handling the Diaz brothers, Tony gets a strange call from a couple of guys who work for Sheffield, the lawyer. They use Elvira, his ex-wife, to lure him into this place and escort Tony over to a private meeting over at the abandoned Freedom Town, when it really turned out to be a setup for an ambush. So a lot of guys to handle, but nothing Tony can't handle. By taking over Little Havana and Downtown, a guy from the Island Keys named the Sandman proposes a deal that'll benefit him and Tony. The Sandman is in charge of the chain of supply of the yayo in the islands. With Tony growing his empire in Miami, he wants to aid Tony in selling his product over to the city. The Sandman also wants to take Sosa down. He is rivals with the Colombians that want to take down his business. What these two have in common with Sosa makes the agreement easier on both parties to forge an alliance. You'll do a few missions for him by helping some of his associates that do their part in distributing the goods. You'll also run into Nacho Contreras at his boat and take out all of his men, including him. These parts where you're going after the big bosses are the harder segments because they carry on a while longer than your usual main missions. Nacho doesn't even have the balls to take you on and jumps off the boat. Instead of Tony giving this dude the last blow, someone in that studio for some reason was like, "Yo, we need a jaw scene." Oh, wait a minute. Scarface is Universal and so is... okay, that makes sense. Afterwards, Tony goes back to Miami to take over North and South Beach territories that belong to Gasper Gomez, and the storefronts there are going to be more expensive, with heavier tasks at hand. After claiming all of Gasper's territory, the Sandman calls Tony and his assistance in his declaration and going into war with the Colombians. They're closing in on his chain of supply and killed one of his important associates. Tony meets up with the Sandman at the plantation, while the Colombians are raiding the place. After saving the plantation, his lab is under attack while the workers are locked up as their hostages. Tony travels to a different island on boat, goes through the raid aggressively while saving the hostages, grabs the needed supplies, and dips. The Sandman then offers his plantation to Tony after all his hard work and contribution. And now that he has an even bigger empire than before, he only has one task left at hand: taking care of Sosa. Which, let me remind you all, Sosa was never seen in the game, not once, not until you get to the end where you travel to his mansion. You do hear his voice throughout the game, and once he finds out you're alive and making moves, he calls you after every level up to throw shit at you.
Everyone you have ever cared for is dead, Tony. The Reaper is grateful. I intend to add you to his list, you fucking persistent little monkey.
Don't you fuck with me!
Now my issue with this part of the story is that you have to remember that Sosa ordered a hit on him at the end of the film. Now you would think that after going this far to expand the empire, he'd take this opportunity to gather up everybody to contribute in helping you take down the very man who tried to take advantage of the business. Nope. Tony gets on a plane, sails over to Colombia, and breaks into Sosa's mansion alone, equipped only with a Desert Eagle and only 7 bullets. That is insane. So you have to depend on picking up enemy weapons and ammo while filling up the rage meter to pass through these guys. Now before we get to that, Gaspar was hiding alongside Sosa and even the lawyer George Sheffield doing God knows what. Other than him being voiced by James Woods, Sheffield was the first person you talk to and only shows up once throughout the entire game, and he sets you up with these 2 clowns until we get to this moment. With Gaspar Gomez, much like Sosa, we only heard from him through the phone. Oh, that's right. So when Tony got his stash back at the beginning of the game, he also took one of his goons' phones, and he's been trolling Gaspar on all his phone calls since.
For that fucking phone you stole, Montana, you owe me $3,000 fucking dollars. You should lay off the phone sex, you freak.
Hey, Gaspar, you got the money, you fuck. Why don't you sell one of your pool boys or something to cover it, okay? The phone is mine now, man.
So naturally, this man is stressing out, understanding the situation at hand. Rightfully so, as they heard Tony raiding into the mansion. So while he's doing that, Tony eliminates the first batch of goons, then takes out Sheffield. Then he'll take care of another batch of enemies while chasing down Gaspar Gomez and takes him out as well. Once everybody's down and out, it's just you and Sosa. Throw everything at him as he deserves it, and the war between Montana and Sosa ends.
Have a nice trip, Sosa!
Before he leaves the mansion, Sosa has one last survivor. And what do you think Tony does with him?
Hey, look at me. I want to see your eyes. It's the truth. I swear. Please. You want a job, man?
Tony is back in his mansion, called up his lady friend from the bar on the islands, brought her over to the hot tub, and even got his new goons serving him a drink. And that's the end of Scarface. It's not an emotional story-driven game, nor is it meant to be taken seriously. It's just Tony Montana in an action-adventure video game set to do what he said he would. And you know what? That's fine with me. You start your journey by losing the fame, the drugs, the money, the women, the power, but most importantly, everyone that he cared and loved for. This is what we call ground zero. From there, where else can you go but up? He meets new associates, gains new allies, expands his business, gets to where he's more than accomplished, and then executes the main villain. Simple as that. There's a reason why the movie ended the way it did. Tony turned on himself and he became his own worst enemy. He was always a troubling man, but he had a part to play when it came to his business and his family. But unfortunately, he got high in his own supply, he got overconfident with his ego, and even though he had one thing right in mind, he couldn't talk to Sosa in a way that could have persuaded him to get off the hook. But that could be doubtful. We may never know. That's just my perspective in a general sense. There's other people and YouTubers who dive into this subject better than someone like me. But the bottom line is, Scarface the game still does indeed hold up very well today. Movie licensed games normally aren't made in this kind of quality, which makes Scarface such a gem. It would be foolish of me to not mention the Scarface Remastered project on PC. This is the version everyone should play. 16:9 widescreen with stable 60 frames per second, updated resolution, and controller support? Yeah, there's no better version. Now, if not PC, you can go for the PlayStation 2 version. It's actually the better version than the Xbox version. Coming from me, that should surprise you. It's more bloody and your clothes are stained. That doesn't sound like anything major or convincing, but trust me, you might want to give it a look. The sequel that never was. Though it is satisfying to have an alternative ending, at the end of the day, it's a video game, and you can accept whether this deserves to be an actual sequel or a nothing burger. It's one of those games that doesn't hurt anybody, not even the fans. Unless you're sensitive to rated M content, which, there's no helping you there. Scarface was a good time, despite the grind fest and the many deaths that made me lose everything far too many times than you can count. It's still worth playing even today. Now before we wrap it up, Radical Entertainment for some reason has caught my attention. So we're going to look at a game that's completely out of left field. Wonder what kind of story we're getting out of this one. Well, with all that said, that's it for me. Once again, thank you everybody so much for stopping by to watch this video. Stay tuned and we'll see each other soon. Salut.